Sunday School teacher, I'm glad that you've joined us for our time of preparation and study. We're working on the lesson for Sunday, July 29th. We are still in our series of 2 Samuel. The title of this lesson is Restored. We're skipping all the chapters related to the conflict and all the events that took place between the last week's lesson when Absalom began his revolt, and we'll just jump right to the end this week and look at what happened for David's kingdom to be restored. So we're going to be in chapter 19. Again, the title of the lesson is Restored. The point of the lesson is that God's leaders steward opportunities to increase the trust of others, the trust that others place in them. So we are stewards of the trust as leaders. 2 Samuel chapter 19 is where we'll be. This session focuses on the decisive military battle where David won. His troops beat Absalom and his forces. The result of that victory was that David's kingdom was restored and the revolt from his son Absalom was ended. And we know after that, again, David acted very wisely to regain the loyalty of all the Israelite troops. David's command of his generals was that he said to his generals, when you get Absalom, be gentle to him. Now that, you're telling a bunch of fighting men to be gentle. And so that's what he thought was going to happen. He thought, they'll go out, they'll have the conflict, they'll bring my son back, and I'll be able to correct him and restore him. That's what David was thinking was going to happen. And you can see that in the first 5 verses of chapter 18. David's army clashed with and defeated Absalom's forces in the forest of Ephraim. And that's in verses 6 through 8 of chapter 18. There were, in the scriptures, it says that more men died as a result of the conditions than actual battle. And that's what happened to Absalom. It says that Absalom, in his trying to escape, got hung up in one of the trees, got caught up in all the branches, and could not free himself. Absalom got separated from his troops and encountered the soldiers attempting to escape. He became entangled in a tree. When Joab heard about that, he took the advantage of the opportunity and used 3 spears that he plunged into Absalom. We see those in verses 9 through 18. And then after that, Joab immediately sent messengers to inform David of the victory. It's important. We got to remember that David said, "Don't harm him," and here they are killing him. So that's where we'll start in chapter 19. So look at the first 4 verses of chapter 19. There we see King David in mourning. It was reported to Joab, the king is weeping. He's in mourning over Absalom. All right, so Joab is the general who killed Absalom. Absalom is David's son who was revolting against his father, the king. That day's victory was turned into mourning for all the troops because that day the troops heard the king is grieving over his son. So they returned to the city quietly that day, like troops coming in when they are humiliated after fleeing in battle. But the king covered his face and cried loudly, "My son Absalom, Absalom, my son, my son." On hearing the news that Absalom had died, David grieved uncontrollably. And that's what, even though his son was the one that rebelled, he was still brokenhearted over his son and was brokenhearted. And again, remember that Joab is a hardened combat veteran. And David's mourning could be expected. I mean, a father just lost his son. But what Joab heard and what he saw seemed very excessive to him. They had won an unwinnable battle. Thus, they should have celebrated. They should have been celebrating. But when they heard of David's response, it changed. So David's men were in an unwinnable battle, but they won. They thought when they came back there would be a parade, a ticker tape parade, if you will, coming back in to celebrate. But coming back in, it was not a time